14. My eyelids crack open, and a low moan escapes me when a throbbing pain beats against the walls of my skull, the ache behind my eyes made worse by the blinding light shuddering overhead. I lift my hand to block out the glare, and squinting, I can just make out my surroundings. The storage room is blistering, or maybe I'm feverish and it's my skin that's on fire, and the scent of dust and mold clouding the air is more potent than usual. That smell isn't coming from me, is it? My tongue darts out to lick my dried lips. I don't remember ever being so thirsty. Once my vision adjusts, my arm drops back beside me, and a frown tugs down the edges of my mouth. Ezra, Jenner, and Ray all stand by the door, keeping their distance from me. For good reason, too. They've witnessed what I can do, what I told them they'd have to see to believe. And, shocker, here I am again, back in my little prison. This can't mean anything good. I tell myself their fearful expressions suggest they're merely taking measures to be cautious. Although, for my sake or theirs, I'm not sure. But that line of thought does little to comfort me. Can't say that I blame them. I would be frightened of me too. Every part of my body hurts as I move to sit up, the forward motion triggering a jolting stabbing pain in my temple. I press the heel of my hand against my forehead, hoping the pressure will counterbalance the ache. When that doesn't work, I drag in a deep breath and try to ignore the dread twisting my stomach. My visions are getting worse. My reactions more severe. This level of pain, it's not normal. Losing consciousness isn't normal. What will happen when the side effects of this disease become too much for me to bear? What if, next time, I don't wake up? The idea of death hovers at the front of my mind. Not that long ago, the escape of it would have been welcome, but now I find myself clinging to life with every ounce of desperation my frail body can muster. Maybe it's my survival instincts kicking in, or maybe I'm just not ready to follow in my father's footsteps. Either way, I don't want to die. Not yet. It's time you tell us what the hell's going on. Ezra steps toward me, crossing his arms. His leering gaze burns into my face, making me squirm. My answer slips out between raspy breaths. I told you it was something you had to see to believe. His eyes narrow. What happened to you back there? What was that? My tongue sweeps over my dry lower lip once again, as I contemplate what to say. It's time to tell them the whole truth before my silence gets me killed. But what possible explanation will make them believe me? There isn't one, I realize. I'll just have to throw caution to the wind and hope for the best. The condition I have, it allows me to see things, I whisper. What kind of things? Ray asks, staring at me, her almond-shaped eyes wide and pressing. Jenner and Ezra both wear the same expectant expression. I waver, sucking in another deep breath, and as my lungs push the air out, the words expel along with it. Things that haven't happened yet. The hush that follows is agonizing. My attention settles on Ezra first, then on Ray, hoping one of them will say something to quell the strange tension sucking the oxygen out of the room. They make it a point to avoid my probing gaze. Jenner suddenly unleashes a loud bark of a laugh, making me nearly jump out of my skin. The sound is harsh against the backdrop of silence. That's impossible, he scoffs. Ray casts an uncertain glance at Ezra, drawing my focus back to his face, which is pale, his expression pinched and unmoving, as if his features have been carved out of stone. A sinking feeling weighs in my gut as the seconds seem to tick by at a snail's pace. It's as if everyone in the small room is waiting for Ezra to say something, especially me. A strangled breath climbs up my throat when he finally speaks. What did you see? I blink, a drop of sweat out of my eyes, my heart racing as I carefully select my next words. That doctor I told you about. Richter? I pause. He was with a group of other researchers, along with enforcers in the alley where I left my chip. They found it. They know I cut it out. I roll my lower lip between my teeth as a thought occurs to me. It's been nearly 2 weeks since I escaped from the DSD. Dr. Richter would have found the tracking chip long before now. He wouldn't have waited this long to come find me. Unless, maybe these visions aren't just of the future, but of things I haven't seen with my own 2 eyes. Future, past, or present. Which would mean Dr. Richter was wrong. And my visions aren't only of what's destined to happen days, weeks, months, or even years from now, but of anything this disease or fate or whatever it is triggering them decides it wants me to see. Just what is all this leading me to? My father's face surfaces from my memory, gripping my heart and lungs in a vise. Could I see him again if I learned to control this ability? Would these visions let me see the dead? It's not possible, Jenner repeats, his voice raised. The mattress squeaks beneath my weight as I recoil, my body shrinking back against the cold wall at the abrupt change in volume. I don't like Jenner shouting. Like water and milk, the two don't go well together. I wish I understood why he's so angry. I wish I knew how to bring back his smile. He turns on Ezra, his cheeks turning ruddy. Come on, man. Seeing into the future? I think our little captive here must have hit her head. There's no way you can actually believe what she's saying. Ray reaches out and plants a tentative hand on his shoulder. Jenner. No, he sneers, stepping out of her grasp. It's just not possible. Everyone goes silent again, and one by one they all look down at the floor, except me. Me, who was taught to never make eye contact or draw attention to myself. My gaze hangs on Jenner. Despite the kindness he's shown me, what I've said has driven a wedge between us, for some inexplicable reason. 18 years of my mother's lessons ring in my head, telling me to mind my own business. But this is my business, isn't it? I want to know what I did to offend him. I wish I knew how to set it right. In my peripheral vision, Ezra lifts his head and his solemn expression coaxes goosebumps up along every single inch of my body. When he speaks, the words that break the silence knock all the air from my lungs. Yes, it is. I stare at him, half in shock and half in confusion. Is he saying what I think he's saying? Does this mean he believes me? Jenner poses the questions I can't find the words to ask. How do you know? How could you know? Ezra's eyes snap to mine, and for the briefest flicker of a moment, all I see is the stranger from my vision, the tears carving lines down his cheeks. Because I've seen it before. Ezra, Ray interrupts. I glance at her, surprised by the warning edge to her tone. My gaze shifts back and forth between her and Ezra, as it dawns on me that this revelation isn't news to her, like it is to me and Jenner. Whatever information Ezra has that gives him knowledge about my condition, whatever he's been through, whatever he's seen, one thing is certain, Ray knows about it. Jenner shakes his head. It's not. Anger distorts Ezra's features, and he slams his fist back against the concrete wall behind him. My mother had the same illness, all right? Dropping his gaze, he slumps to the floor and rubs a hand across his eyes. A million thoughts run through my head in this moment, and I can't ignore the monumental realization that there's something else connecting us, beyond what I saw at the DSD, something that proves I'm not his enemy. Is this link why he was in my vision? Is this link what drove us together? She kept muttering these strange things that didn't make any sense. Ezra's voice is low, as if he's speaking to himself, and I find myself leaning in, eager to take in every word. I focus on his moving lips with rapt attention. Everyone thought she was crazy, even my father. That's why he had her institutionalized. I guess he figured she wouldn't get better, at least not without professional help. I can't remember how long she was in the asylum since we were never allowed to visit. All I know is she died alone in that place. A gasp rises in my throat, but I swallow it. Like the detention facilities, asylums are located in Zone 7, far away from respected society. Unlike detention, where we're told rehabilitation is possible, those unlucky enough to be institutionalized will never see the light of day again. Institutionalization is a death sentence. They might as well be sent to termination. After all, the state only cares about contributing citizens, and those institutionalized cannot contribute. Even old age is frowned upon, although the state rewards a lifetime of servitude with cushy pensions once we reach 70 to entice compliance. But those at asylums, the only reason I can think of as to why they aren't disposed of like criminals is because no laws were broken resulting in their sentence. The state probably fears the outrage that would ensue if it started executing people just because they were unwell. I think back to my first real conversation with Dr. Richter as we sat on opposite sides of that long metal table. He had asked so many questions and explained things I still have difficulty wrapping my head around. He also showed me the files of the other known individuals who suffered from this disease, from Ultraxenopia, individuals who probably died in an asylum, or in more recent years as a result of Dr. Richter's experiments, once he realized what they were and the DSD got a hold of them. Looking back, I wish I had thought to memorize their names. Maybe then I would know if Ezra's mother had been in that pile. It was the unusual circumstances of what happened to my mother that contributed to the selection of my brother's career, Ezra continues. I guess now I know he's finally gained some insight into her condition after all these years. What do you mean? But as the words breach my lips, it dawns on me that I know the answer. It can't be a coincidence. Not after the way Ezra and Ray, who I now know were childhood friends, thanks to Jenner, both reacted when I mentioned him. That doctor from the DSD. His name is Austin. A door seems to open in front of me, revealing an obvious physical resemblance between Ezra and Dr. Richter. I can't believe I didn't notice it sooner. Although their eyes are different colors, they share the same angular jaw and the same furrowed brow. Even their noses and hair color are similar, the latter only differing by a few shades. Whereas Ezra's is dirty blonde, Richter's hair is tinged auburn, warmer in hue, which I find ironic, considering his cold personality. Not that Ezra is exactly a fuzzy ball of sunshine. I don't want to be right about this, terrified of what it could mean if I am. Because if Dr. Richter is a monster, what exactly does that make his brother? Are you sure? The question barely makes it past my lips, my voice hitching. As Ezra nods, Ray, who has been silent up to this point, extinguishes any remaining doubt I have. We knew which sector he was projected to enter. Wait a minute. One of those DSD scumbags is your brother? I look over at Jenner, watching as tremors of rage pin his arms to his sides, and his hands clench into tight fists, the knuckles draining of color until the skin is bleached bone white. Before Ezra can answer, Jenner lunges across the small room, closing the distance between them. He only manages to grab hold of Ezra's shirt before Ray steps between them, shoving him back. Jenner, that's enough! She shouts. His upper lip curls back, revealing his top row of teeth, but he releases his grip. Seething, he turns away from us, cursing. I risk a glance at Ezra, and it only takes a few seconds for me to recognize the emotion warping his expression, having felt the very same conflicted feelings toward my own mother that he must be feeling right now. But is his resentment directed at Jenner, or at the brother who's causing this rift between them? Scowling, he runs a hand through his hair. Listen, I haven't seen or spoken to my brother in years. We became estranged shortly after my mother's death. at which point he got permission to go by her maiden name, probably as a middle finger to our father. When I left home to join Phoenix, he cut off all contact. He wanted nothing to do with me, and I never bothered to find out what he was up to. Case closed. As Ezra speaks, I'm distracted by the look on Ray's face and by the tears glistening in her eyes at his words. Once again, I'm left wondering about her connection to the man who tortured me. Since she and Ezra have known each other since they were children, that must mean she knew Richter too. You should have said something, Jenner grumbles, clicking his tongue with a disapproving tut. That's a messed up thing to keep from us. Do you even realize what kind of danger that connection can put us all in? He lets out a humorless laugh. Lies and omissions like that make you no better than the state. I wrap my arms around my legs, pulling them close to my chest, keeping my back to the wall and trying to make myself as small as possible. This conversation might have started with me, but it sure as hell hasn't ended with me. Now I'm nothing but an unwanted intruder. Jenner, let's go for a walk, Ray pleads. He casts a begrudging look at her before stomping into the corridor, slamming the door shut behind him. She moves to follow, but hesitates long enough to brush a hand against Ezra's shoulder. They exchange a silent glance, but neither one of them utters a word. My eyes dart between them as Ray pulls open the door. Ezra doesn't move from his spot on the floor, his posture stiff and gaze downcast. And as Ray steps out of the room, the door clicks shut behind her, leaving the two of us alone.